And we are back with yet another riveting edition of the Cerebral Entertainment Podcast. With me, as always, via Skype from Columbus, Ohio, is my good friend and co-host Colt. How you doing, Colt?
Good, buddy. How about you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Things are going pretty smoothly. Had a nice day here in Missouri. Sorry that you missed it, but it was like 65-degree weather. Got to go outside, work on the house, get some yard work done. Got all itchy and scratchy from cutting down a bush. But
Nice.
yeah, overall it was a good day though. Had a good day. It was things that needed to be done. So
Right.
yeah, so we got that taken care of. But yeah, you are in Columbus, Ohio.
That is correct.
Can you tell us why someone would go to Columbus, Ohio for a weekend such as this?
I'm starting to wonder because it's freaking cold up here.
Nice.
It is like 20 degrees. And like I told you, apparently people around here are used to living here or something. Because I'm out there in like three shirts and a hoodie and a sock cap and sweatpants. And then I walk outside freezing my butt off and see guys just running up the street in shorts and short sleeves, actually sweating. I don't get it.
Were
It's
were they real big and fat, or I mean, I
no,
assume that they wouldn't be if they're running like that. I would have to assume
right.
that they're in shape.
Right. So I mean, I don't know if they're marathon runners or what, but they're dumb. That's all I got to say.
Runners have that thing about them though. Runners, they just, I mean, they get out in all types of temperatures, all types of weather. I see runners in the rain, especially when you get up to the city. You go up to St. Louis near the park, and you really see a lot of just people out in all sorts of weather. It will be like nearing tornado situation, and you will see people out there getting their jog on.
Yeah. Screw that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you're a runner, it's what you have a passion for, so that's what you're gonna do. Like me.
Well, but there's also gyms with treadmills. I mean,
It's not the same, man. It's not the same. But for me, I would probably podcast in such conditions. So there's that.
well, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not out in the elements per se, but I might be if I wanted to podcast about the oncoming tornado. So I could see having, if you have a passion for running, then that's what you're going to do. But
Very
yes.
true.
So tell us why you're up in Columbus, Colt.
I am in Columbus, Ohio, for the Arnold Classic or the Arnold Sports Festival, whatever you want to consider it. Basically, a huge expo for anybody and everybody in the bodybuilding and fitness industry. They do all sorts of competitions, everything from fencing to there's boxing, there's bodybuilding competitions, there's anything you can possibly think of, from kids all the way up. It's a mess, to say the least,
I mess why?
because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Can you tell us exactly how many attended this year?
I don't have a actual number. I should have looked that up. I don't have an actual number for how many is up here this year. I know
Okay.
it's over 20,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Or
this,
no, actually, I'm sorry. That's over 20,000 competitors.
no kidding.
As far as people here, I don't have a count of how many people are actually here, but it's one of those things where like there's so many people that to walk maybe 30 feet, it's going to take you like 10 minutes.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting that you brought up all the different competitions that are there, because when I first heard of the Arnold Classic, right, I just, my mind went to competitive bodybuilding. And so I
Mhm.
just, and I know that's an element of the Arnold Classic, most definitely.
Right.
But I just
Uh-huh.
pictured that was what it was all about. There
Right.
wasn't much else besides just a bunch of really muscular people walking around, doing their thing, what
Right.
bodybuilders do. But you explained that there's a lot more competition. So what other kind of people do you see up there besides just your competitive bodybuilders?
There's a little bit of everybody, man. I mean, it's what this is like a huge expo where all of your besides the competition aspect for all the different sports, it's actually a big expo where people come to like big name brands, say like your Optimum Nutrition, your Muscle Tech, your Muscle Farm, your big name fitness brands, bodybuilding brands, all those. they come in and they set up these huge booths, and it's just going through, and they give free samples, and you can talk with people that are in the industry. You can talk with people that work for each individual brand, and it's a for my goals and for anybody who's interested in this kind of stuff. It's a perfect place for anybody. It's a perfect motivator for anybody.
Sweet. So at these booths, I know you've mentioned supplement companies. So you can like sample different supplements, nutritional supplements, things like that. What other kind of booths are there up there? What are you seeing at the booths?
Well, I mean, it's literally like your big name like proteins, like anybody who puts out protein and creatine, and there's actually a little bit of everything up here, because like there's mattress companies that are trying to sell, like they literally have like beds that are just laid out, and I'm pretty sure that's just for when you get tired and you take a nap, because I didn't see anybody there at the booth. I just seen beds laid out. So they look really comfy, especially after you walk around all day long.
That's awesome. I would have probably taken a nap myself.
Right. But, I mean, anything to do with health, anything to do with, vitamins, anything to do with bodybuilding, fitness in general, anything, this is the perfect place for anybody.
Okay. So I also feel the need at this point to reference back to our podcast review from last week.
Okay.
It was an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And
Correct.
So definitely by design an interesting lead up to your extravaganza this weekend. But something that Arnold mentioned when one of the questions posed to him was, what is the difference between bodybuilding back in the day, like when he was young and when he was in the sport, and versus now? But Arnold delineated between two different types of bodybuilding. And so there are people who build their bodies, right? They want to be more muscular, they want to be fit, they want to look good, they want to feel good, so on and so forth. And so that is a bigger swath of the population than your competitive bodybuilders. And so I just wanted to make that distinction, because people who are bodybuilders aren't necessarily competitive. And so anybody who's just interested in getting in shape and looking good and feeling good, having big muscles, or not even just big muscles, but being cut, being defined, they are also bodybuilders. So I feel like that's an important thing to bring up, because not everybody is trying to be like these super huge, big men and women who do this for competition, and they get tans that make them look like they've been out in the sun for 6 weeks straight, and all that good stuff.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's from the way Arnold was talking, it has definitely changed from back in the day to now, especially just size in general with these guys, man. We actually, I'll get into it a little bit later, but we actually went to the pre-judging today for the Arnold Classic, bodybuilding itself. And, dude, these guys are just monsters. I mean, literally, their delts, their shoulder muscles are the size of my head. I mean, it is so crazy. But what impressed me most was in that pre-judging, they had a wheelchair bodybuilding also. And it was really neat, because I think they had like 7 competitors. But the guy that was announcing for it he gave a description for each person on exactly like what vertebrae was severed or whatever issue they had that made them paralyzed, and then actually described each situation on how they lost the use of their legs and stuff like that.
Right.
It was really neat, because it really got you invested in each bodybuilder as they came out and stuff. But they still had like routines and stuff. They play music while the bodybuilder comes out and does their own routine while they're posing and flexing and stuff. So it was really neat. It was really neat to see that, and it's really neat to see how cut and defined these guys can get while being in a wheelchair, because cardio has to be so hard for these guys to do. They can't run stairs, they can't run outside or anything. Any cardio they get's got to be from their upper body work and stuff. So their diet has to be extremely on point to be able to get to. But I'm talking, some of these guys had smaller waists than some of the actual the regular bodybuilders up there. It was crazy.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing, though, that, bodybuilding in and of itself is a culture. And I've never really been exposed to that before I really started, talking with you about such things. But
Right.
that whole culture it's pretty amazing when you get into people like with disabilities, because those people got to work so hard. They already have a challenging life, being disabled and having the loss of the use of their legs, all their lower extremities. But man, they still have the willpower and the passion to do something like that. That's pretty stinking amazing, man.
Well, and not only would it be hard for them to do it after they, lost the use of their legs and stuff, but think about being a bodybuilder before an accident, a car wreck, or whatever it is, and then continuing it to do it after you you have the car wreck or whatever. That has to be the hardest mental strain you could possibly have to try to continue to do something like that.
Pro-
After such an issue.
Yeah, probably, but on the other hand, it's probably one of the driving forces for them to keep moving on. Keep staying motivated, to stay motivated, and not to give up, and just sit in your wheelchair and in your own pity party. Even though at that point, man, I think you've got all rights to pity yourself, and it seems
Right.
like it to me, though, and that's not, of course, that's not how anybody wants to be, but I'm just trying to say those guys have just got another, they're on the next level of motivation, because that's just something else. That's sweet.
Yeah.
So, and I've also noticed, I did a little bit of research on the Arnold Classic myself. I noticed there's a lot of doctors of nutrition, things like that up there. So, nutrition obviously goes hand in hand with bodybuilding. You have to really monitor your nutrition. And reviewing some of the podcasts that we have uh, since we've started this show, really started to listen to these guys. And man, these guys are scientists. I mean, these guys, they're if they're not scientists themselves, they are like they're researchers basically. They research the science that's been laid out there, and they stick to this regimen of such a strict diet and like time, the time that they eat and what they intake into their body, how close that is to their workout, things like that. It's some pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've said in the past that a lot of people look at bodybuilders as just meatheads, and just all they care about is the gym and all this other stuff. But a lot of these guys, man, they have degrees. They went to school, that nutrition and dieting and all that kind of stuff. There's so much to learn, and like you said, when it comes to not only the nutrition aspect, but knowing when to take for each person's body. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's body reacts different to different things. Everybody has different genetics. So your carbs, your fats, your proteins, all that kind of stuff. You have to learn your body and know exactly when the best time is to take in that kind of stuff, how much to take in, how much is too much at a certain time, how much not enough, all that kind of stuff. It's there's so much science that is involved in it that is way over my head.
It's a great point, though, that there's a lot of science, but there's also a lot of intuition. A lot of the approach is intuitive because, like you said, you've got to know your body, and so
Right.
that's also observation. You have to observe how your body reacts to whatever you're putting into it, or whatever kind of physical strain that you're putting on it. But it's also like I think we all kind of know our bodies just intuitively to know
Right.
this, the reaction that we're going to get. And so, yeah, that's amazing stuff. And so this sounds like one big expo of a bunch of big and smart people.
Not necessarily. I mean, you've got everybody from all different worlds. I mean, there's a lot of I don't want to say it, but a lot of obese people walking around too. You've got a lot of really skinny people walking around, But for me, I always use this as a motivator. When you walk, because of some of the people that walk around in there that are just refrigerators walking around in there, and you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it as something as a demotivator where I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to get that big, or there's no way I can ever look like that. But for me, it's almost like a reset. Every time I come up here, everybody gets in a drought when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to dieting, when it comes to lifting or fitness, whatever. Everybody gets in a drought. And every time I come up here, it's like a reset for me. As soon as I get home, I'm 100% motivated to get back in the gym and start working on myself again.
Yeah, you get pumped up, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So I think it's good though that you got some obese people there. You
Yeah.
know, they must. I mean, I don't know what the ratio is, but I would think it's a motivator for them too. You know, to get into
Right.
that, to be, you know, in such depth in that culture around them that it's you know it's got to be an uplifting thing, I would think, or else they wouldn't be there. You know, it's got to be
Right.
a pretty uplifting experience. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
good stuff. So, what else is going on there at the expo that you can talk about with us?
Well, the major thing for me is there's quite a few people that I knew I wanted to try to get with and meet with when we got up here, especially our friends over at Bodybuilding Nerds, our friends at Clinical Muscle, Advices Radio in general. I was able to get with a few of those guys. I was able to get some pictures with some professional bodybuilders out there and stuff, and it's definitely been a wild couple of days.
Yeah, man. So just to mention, we've got several of those pictures up on Instagram right now, and I think the Cerebral Entertainment Podcast Facebook page as well.
Right.
Yeah. So proof positive that Colt is in Columbus, Ohio, with these big bodybuilders and cool guys.
Yeah, I would be very good at Photoshop if I was able to pull those kind of pictures off by myself.
Right. So you mentioned a couple of different podcasts there. Bodybuilding Nerds. Remind us again about the Bodybuilding Nerds. Who are the Bodybuilding Nerds and what do they do?
Bodybuilding Nerds Radio. We've got VJ Fury and Scott McNally. These are two guys that we've actually reviewed in the past. We reviewed Bodybuilding Nerds. Especially after meeting both of them this year. I met Scott last year, but I didn't get to talk to him much. But I got to meet VJ this year too. I don't have enough good things to say about these guys. I mean, the second you have a conversation with these guys, it's like you've known them forever. I mean, they're like best friends, just hanging out, just having good conversation. Was also able to meet with Dr. Stephen Ogden. He's actually from Clinical Muscle, which is also a VJ through Radio, which is on iTunes as well. Same thing, man. I don't have enough good things to say about any of these guys. We stood around and talked to them for a while, got pictures with them and stuff. After that, we actually went and bought tickets with them for the prejudging bodybuilding show we went to and stuff. And we actually sat with them through the prejudging and all that. And it's one thing to listen to a podcast of guys that are in a complete other state, but it's another thing to actually get to meet with those guys and then just sit and talk actual bodybuilding that you listen to them talk about all the time. But to actually sit down with them and watch a bodybuilding show while talking with them, it was awesome.
Nice.
I had a good time.
Nice. So let's back up just for a minute. Where can we find the Bodybuilding Nerds? Where can we find their podcast and where are they at on the interwebs?
Podcast is on iTunes, Facebook, Instagram, all your major social media platforms. Stephen Ogden as well, with VJ Fury for Clinical Muscle. They're on iTunes as well through the Advices Radio Network, which is basically Scott McNally's network that he put out there on iTunes.
Okay. So Scott has an entire network on and these are all podcasts. And are they all these are all podcasts on his network, right?
Yeah.
And are they all related to bodybuilding?
Well, no, I take that back. Bodybuilding Nerds isn't through Advices. Bodybuilding Nerds was a thing that Scott and VJ put together themselves at the beginning.
Okay.
And then, as you said in the past, catching the podcasting bug, that's definitely what Scott did. So he's gotten really into not only doing podcasts, but like producing podcasts and stuff too. There's some so he created the Advices Network that he runs through iTunes. So he has several different podcasts with quite a few different people on those podcasts as well.
Okay. That's awesome, man. So he definitely got the podcast bug, which, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, the podcasting bug is real. It is a real thing. It will infect you, and it will it will change your life, and sometimes it will take your life over, but it's always for the better, in my opinion.
That's
So,
right.
hold on just a second, Colt. So, tell me a little bit more about Stephen Ogden. What does he do? What's his story?
Stephen Ogden is a doctor out of Delaware, actually. It's pretty crazy, actually, because so Stephen and VJ have done this. A little bit of backstory. They did a show called Medical Muscle back on Project Bodybuilding through iTunes.
Okay.
Kind of a network, kind of like what Advices is. They have several different podcasts through that one network. They transferred over to Advices Radio, and now they've got Clinical Muscle. But it's so weird because they've done all these episodes through both these networks, and you could tell they just have like a chemistry together that you can't beat, but they've never met each other. So it's kind of cool to actually be there when VJ walked in today, and they actually met each other and had like a long awkward hug and all this stuff for like first time they ever met each other. It's kind of weird, but
I actually saw that picture on Facebook.
Did you?
I forget which one posted the post, Steven or or VJ, but one of them said that it was nice to finally meet the guy that they've known for years but haven't ever met. So yeah,
right.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so who else you been meeting out there? What else you got going on?
Well, let me throw another name out there to you real quick. I'm gonna throw out Mike Pulcinella. He actually came over while we were talking to Scott and VJ and Steven. Kind of got in our little group, and I originally heard about him through Bodybuilding Nerds, but I guess you could consider him a documentarian because he did 3 different movies that followed his brother called Raising the Bar, his brother David Pulcinella. And I actually, while we're talking about him, I want to throw out a few things about him and kind of plug a few things about him real quick too.
Okay, sure.
So, like I said, Mike Pulcinella is his name, his brother David, and they actually have a podcast themselves. It's called Voices of Bodybuilding, which you can find on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just like us, I suggest that everybody gets on all 3 of those platforms and subscribes. I personally have not been able to listen to podcasts yet, but I've talked to Mike, and I definitely want to very soon get a hold of one of those, listen to it, and review it on our podcast too.
Definitely. So, what his podcast is a bodybuilding podcast? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, definitely get on there and subscribe. Give us the name again of that podcast, Colt.
Voices of Bodybuilding.
Voices of Bodybuilding. Make sure you check that out. And I'm telling you, until I met you, I would have never. I don't think I would have probably ever ventured into the world of bodybuilding podcast. But now that I've started, I totally dig it. I totally dig what they're saying because it's not just about lifting 500 pounds on the bench or something like that. They really get into in depth about their routine in life. And a lot of the stuff that I'm not a bodybuilder. I like to stay in shape, and so I'm able to extract a lot of information from these guys and utilize it in my personal life, nutrition-wise and workout-wise too, and just having a healthy lifestyle,
right.
including more healthy lifestyle habits into my daily life, because I want to get the absolute most I can out of this short time that I'm here on this big blue ball, floating in space,
right.
and staying healthy and being active and pushing yourself, challenging yourself, having those things is one of the best things that you could possibly do for yourself, and not just for
right.
yourself, for everybody around you, because when you're healthy and you build confidence, and that just kind of shows through your personality, it shows through the way that you view the world and the way the world views you. And so
right.
it's really just a win-win situation. So I'm really digging on these podcasts. I think that these guys are doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to reviewing this podcast as well.
Well, that's what I love about this world, man. It's not only just because I love lifting. It's not because I love the gym and stuff like that. There's a lot of there's an unlimited amount of knowledge that you can take in this area, and especially through the podcast that we listen to, I can't soak in half of it just because of there's so much out there. I take what I can and I try to apply everything that I can to me. I just do the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I can really say.
That's what all of us are charged with, is doing the best that we can. But we got to be honest about whether or not we are doing our best.
Right.
Because it shows. And when you've got biceps the same size as your calves, it shows that you're putting in the work, that you're taking things seriously. So their work definitely shows out. Any bodybuilder, and
Right.
that's just I think that's a classic measurement, to my understanding, that bodybuilders, I think it was Arnold that actually heard that from, to get the measurements of your biceps the same as your calves or something like that. But it doesn't have to be like that. But your work definitely shows, and it could just be being healthy, just living a healthy lifestyle. It shows compared to someone who doesn't, and it's difficult to live healthy for a lot of people in today's the world that we live in today. In our culture, it is because of the massive amounts of fast food and the countless hours of sitting in front of the TV and the inactivity and all the other the things that we do to ourselves, that we're not paying attention to, and it just leads us down an unhealthy road, man. And we end up paying for it, And you and I have talked before about how you hate the whole thing where somebody says, you only have one life to live, and we got into that discussion about but you want to have the highest quality of life that you possibly can while you're
Right.
on this earth, and the biggest part of that is staying healthy, Another very big part of that is staying optimistic, having an optimistic worldview and viewpoint of things going on around you, and staying positive about the things that are in your control, for sure. You gotta take care of those people that are in your sphere of influence. But it's hard to do anything else if you can't stay healthy. It's hard to get anything else done if you're not healthy. And I think that's a cerebral point. I think it's something that I want people to think about. I didn't always think about it, to be honest with you. I used to do all kinds of wicked stuff to my body, and luckily fortunately, I guess, there was a turnaround point for me where I started paying more attention to not just what I was putting in my body, but the kind of effort I put into staying healthy, whether that be in nutrition, working out, and just having the knowledge, man. Having the knowledge is where it's at. And of course, once again, I got to pump up the podcast universe, because the knowledge is out there. All you got to do is, download an episode, check it out, subscribe, and just keep trying to get better and better.
That's right. Well, I think that's another thing. Like with this expo, I think it's another way that people can benefit for this kind of stuff. Like I said, there's everything from as skinny as you can get people out that was there to people who are obese, But it like I said, it's a mindset, and everybody's raised differently. Everybody lives a different life than everybody else. So I mean, it's a matter of where your mindset's at. And an expo like this, somebody that's huge or somebody that's really small, unhealthy in general, that walks into a place like this and sees all these fitness figures and bodybuilders and things like that, it could be a turning point for people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. I'm feeling the energy just talking to you via Skype right now. It
Right.
just kind of gets you pumped up. So, you have anything else that you want to share with us on this short version of the CEP?
Not really. Like I said, it's been a crazy couple of days with the 7-hour drive up here, and kind of been tired the whole time, but just fighting through and trying to meet as many people as we can, trying to pump up our podcast as much as I can through these people, and trying to spread other podcasts out there, trying to spread these bodybuilders out there and stuff. Definitely going to post any pictures and videos that we were able to get up on our page. Definitely going to post links to bodybuilding nerds, advices, voices of bodybuilding, all that kind of stuff on our page too. I think it's extremely important that if we want help, we need to or in promoting ourselves, we need to help other people promote themselves as well.
That's the thing I love about the podcasting universe, man. It's to me it's very symbiotic. You know, that's why I love doing the reviews. You know, not even if we don't get one networking opportunity out of it, I already know that we are enlightening others who listen to our podcast to venture out and listen to the ones that we review. You know, so that in and of itself is I just find it rewarding. I love it. I think
Right.
it's great. So
Same here.
yeah, man. Well, got to thank you a lot for taking time out while you're on your trip. I know it's like a little mini vacation for you, but
Right.
appreciate you Skyping with us. And of course, I look forward to having you back in the studio, if you will, which
That's
is
right.
which is either your basement or my office here. And
Yeah, maybe we'll have a studio one day.
you know, maybe, but you know, if not, then we'll just keep doing what we're doing. So just want
That's
to
true. I'm
mention,
good with that too.
yeah, just want to mention. Don't forget to like us on our Facebook page, the Cerebral Entertainment Podcast page, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram as well. We are covering the interwebs as much as possible, and we're going to continue to grow. So we can't do it without the support of all you people out there. And when you engage with us, you only fuel our fire that much greater. Thanks again, Colt, and don't forget to keep your brains warm out there. We'll see you next time.
See ya.